Fall back! The dam is lost. The SEAL commander's scream echoed through smoke and fire. Water gushed from cracks in the concrete. Enemy forces surged forward like a deadly flood. A SEAL collapsed, gasping. It's too late. Suddenly, the sky thundered. The sound of heavy engines roared like approaching storm. An A-10 Warthog dove down, its silver wings shaking violently. A female pilot's voice rang through the radio. "Not while I'm still flying!" The entire battle line fell silent. Her name was Reina Vasquez, 28 years old, with long brown hair, a slender frame, a cold expression, and fierce, determined eyes. Call sign, Silent Hawk. She had once been an A-10 pilot, famous for precise support strikes in countless battles. After one failed mission that cost her teammates their lives, she was evaluated as no longer able to maintain nerves of steel. Her superiors transferred her to base duty, assigning only training missions and tactical documentation. Young F-16 pilots often mocked her. The A-10 is obsolete junk. These days, F-35s should rule the sky, one would say, deliberately loud enough for her to hear. Silent Hawk? She's been silent for years, another would add with a smirk. Reina never argued. She would simply clean the Silver Raven 6 patch on her worn flight helmet in silence. Every day, she would stop for a long time in front of A-10 Hog 201, abandoned on the edge of the tarmac, covered in dust and rust. The base had moved on to newer, shinier aircraft. Gleaming F-35s occupied the main hangars, while her old Warthog sat forgotten like a museum piece. "Ma'am, why do you keep coming here?" a young maintenance officer once asked, finding her standing beside the covered aircraft. Reina ran her hand along the weathered fuselage. "Because it still has a heartbeat. It just needs someone brave enough to wake it up." The officer laughed. "Ma'am, that thing hasn't seen combat in over a year. The systems are outdated. The weapons are old school. Modern warfare has passed it by." "That's exactly what makes it dangerous," Reina replied quietly. "Nobody expects old school anymore." During briefings, younger pilots would discuss their missions as if she weren't there. They talked about precision strikes, stealth capabilities, and advanced targeting systems. Modern combat aviation is about speed and surgical precision. One squadron leader explained to his team, "We eliminate targets with minimal collateral damage and maximum efficiency." "What happens when your precision fails?" Reina asked from the back of the room. The squadron leader paused, looking uncomfortable. "Ma'am, with proper intelligence and advanced systems, failure isn't really an option." Reina nodded slowly. "And when your intelligence is wrong? When your advanced systems are compromised? When soldiers on the ground need someone who won't leave?" The room fell quiet. The young pilot shifted nervously. We adapt to the situation, ma'am." "Yes," Reina said, standing slowly. "You adapt. And sometimes adaptation means going back to what works. Sometimes it means getting your hands dirty and staying in the fight, no matter what." She walked toward the door, then paused. The A-10 was built for when everything else fails. So was I. A maintenance engineer later recalled, "I saw her touch the peeling paint like she was holding a soul. She just whispered, 'It still has a heartbeat. It just needs someone brave enough to wake it up.'" The mission was critical. A SEAL team defending the strategic Batu Dam, preventing enemy forces from destroying the water source for the entire region. Initially, they held their positions well. But then 300 enemy fighters poured down from the hills, bringing RPGs, mortars, and heavy machine guns that rained death like a steel storm. Smoke and water mixed together as chunks of concrete exploded around them. The radio crackled with the SEAL commander's desperate voice. "We can't hold! Need close air support, now!" Back at the command center, chaos erupted. F-35s were committed to another front. F-16s were blocked at the border. There were no available assets to deploy. A duty officer announced coldly, "It's too late. Even SEALs can't hold the dam." Over the radio, another SEAL screamed, "We're falling back! The dam is lost." Standing in the corner of the room, Reina gripped her flight helmet tightly, her heart racing. "Confirm. All available aircraft are committed," the flight operations officer reported. "No close air support available for dam defense." "SEAL team is on their own," the commander stated with finality. The radio filled with increasingly desperate transmissions. "They're breaching the north wall! Explosives set on the main structure! We need immediate air support, or this dam is gone!" When everyone else gave up on the distress signals, Reina bolted from the room and sprinted toward the flight line. Before her sat A-10 Hog 201, motionless like an aging steel corpse. The maintenance chief shouted after her, "That bird's been decommissioned." Everyone's written it off. "Vasquez!" Reina's voice was steel, her eyes blazing. "Then tonight, it flies." Her hands moved with practiced precision over systems she knew by heart. Every switch, every gauge, every control was as familiar as her own pulse. The twin TF-34 engines screamed to life, black smoke billowing high. Hog 201 shook violently, but still rolled toward the runway. "Tower, this is Hog 201 requesting immediate takeoff clearance," she radioed. "Hog 201, you are not authorized for combat operations," the controller replied. "That aircraft is not mission-ready." "Tower, the dam is about to fall, and Americans are dying." Reina's voice cut through the static. "I'm mission-ready." She pushed the throttles forward, without waiting for permission. The old Warthog accelerated down the runway, its landing lights cutting through the darkness like angry eyes. "Did she really just—" one controller whispered. "Hog 201 is airborne," another confirmed, watching his radar screen in disbelief. In the command center, stunned silence gave way to whispered conversations. "She actually got that old bird in the air. After all this time, Silent Hawk is back." The maintenance chief stood on the tarmac, watching the aircraft he thought was dead climbing into the night sky. "Control, this is Hog 201. Reina's voice came over the radio, steady and determined. "Requesting vector to Batu Dam." "Hog 201, understand you're proceeding to dam defense?" the controller asked uncertainly. "Affirmative. The SEALs need air support, and I'm all they've got." A maintenance engineer later remembered, "My whole body was shaking when I saw Hog 201 take off. Everyone thought it was dead, but Reina brought its heart back to life." Above the clouds, old engines pushed through the darkness, carrying their pilot toward a battle that would prove some warriors never truly retire. They just wait for the moment when they're needed most. At the dam, the SEAL commander screamed in desperation, "Fall back! The dam is lost." A SEAL collapsed against the concrete barrier, whispering, "It's too late." Enemy forces surged toward the critical infrastructure, explosives ready to destroy the region's water supply. Just then, the sky erupted in thunder. The GAU-8 Avenger cannon roared like a tornado, 30-millimeter rounds tearing through enemy formations like a chainsaw through wood. A-10 Hog 201 dove from the darkness, wings shaking violently, rounds spraying like steel rain. Armored vehicles erupted in flames. RPG positions vanished in smoke. Enemy fighters scattered in complete chaos. The radio thundered with a female voice. "This is Silent Hawk." "Not while I'm still flying." The SEALs froze in disbelief. One shouted, "She's back! Silent Hawk is back!" Reina banked hard, continuously dropping cluster bombs, creating corridors of fire for the SEALs to re-establish their defensive positions. The dam structure shook violently, but held firm. Enemy forces attempted one final assault, but wave after wave was shredded by the A-10's devastating firepower. BRRRRRRT. The cannon spoke again, eliminating a mortar team. BRRRRRRT. Another burst destroyed a vehicle-mounted machine gun. Smoke and water filled the air, but the tide of battle had turned completely. "How is she doing this?" a young SEAL asked, watching another enemy position disappear in flames. "The A-10 was built for this," his sergeant replied, awe in his voice. And so was she. Reina flew methodical attack patterns, each pass calculated for maximum effect. She turned the battlefield into her personal canvas, painting it with precision firepower. The enemy commander's voice crackled over intercepted radio. "Withdraw! Withdraw! We cannot advance!" "What happened to air superiority?" another enemy voice demanded. "There is only one aircraft." "But it will not die." The A-10's titanium armor deflected ground fire that would have destroyed lighter aircraft. Reina pressed her attack relentlessly, staying over the battlefield far longer than any modern fighter could. "SEAL Team, this is Silent Hawk," she called over the radio, her voice calm despite the chaos. "The dam is secure." "Repeat, the dam is secure." Back at base command, the entire room stared at their tactical displays in stunned silence. "Confirm status," the duty officer stammered. "Single A-10 has neutralized an entire enemy battalion?" "Confirmed, sir. Dam defense successful. Enemy forces in full retreat." The base commander's voice was barely audible. One pilot. One old aircraft. She held the dam. In her cockpit, Reina banked around for a final protective sweep. Sweat dripped down her face, but her hands were steady on the controls. "Control. This is Silent Hawk. Mission accomplished. The dam stands." Below, the SEALs secured their positions, watching their guardian angel circle overhead. The water continued to flow, the region's lifeline preserved. The SEAL commander, his voice hoarse with exhaustion and emotion, keyed his radio. "Silent Hawk, this is Ground Team Actual. You didn't just save the dam. You saved thousands of lives." "Just doing my job," Reina replied, but there was something different in her voice now. The quiet confidence of a warrior who had found her purpose again. As she turned toward home, the enemy forces continued their retreat. They had learned a hard lesson about underestimating old aircraft and older pilots. The dam stood because one woman refused to accept that it was too late. "Silent Hawk, this is base command," the radio crackled. "Outstanding work. Welcome back." For the first time in months, Reina smiled. Good to be back. The forgotten warrior had reminded everyone that some battles can only be won by those who refuse to quit, no matter how impossible the odds. A real detail, a SEAL survivor later recounted, "We had put our weapons down. We were done. But the sound of that hog brought us back to our feet. She turned the sky into a steel storm, and the dam still stands." The old bird and her pilot had proven that legends don't retire. They just wait for the moment when they're needed most. Reina landed with Hog 201 riddled with bullet holes, smoke streaming from multiple hits to the fuselage. There was no welcoming ceremony, no cheering crowd. But along the runway, the SEAL team she had just saved stood at attention, their eyes fixed on her with profound respect. As she shut down the engines and climbed from the cockpit, the SEAL commander approached slowly. His uniform was torn, his face blackened with combat grime, but his bearing was that of a warrior who had witnessed something extraordinary. He stopped directly in front of her and placed his hand on her shoulder, speaking quietly but with absolute conviction. "We thought it was too late. You proved us wrong." Reina didn't reply. She removed her gloves, her scarred hands gripping the silver Silent Hawk patch on her flight suit. She looked at each face, men who had stared death in the face and lived to tell about it because one pilot refused to give up. Without a word, she turned and walked away into the shadows of the base. That night, in the command center, someone quietly rehung the Silent Hawk patch on the Wall of Honor. No official orders were given, no ceremonies planned. It simply appeared, like a ghost returning to its rightful place. The base commander found it there the next morning during his inspection. He stared at it for a long moment, reading the small placard that had appeared beneath it. Silent Hawk, Dam Defense. Thousands saved. He left it hanging without comment. In her quarters, Reina sat at her small desk, writing in her worn journal. They said it was too late. Everyone had given up, the command, the other pilots, even the SEALs on the ground. But I learned something today. It's never too late, as long as someone is still willing to fight. She paused, her pen hovering over the page. The dam stands not because of advanced technology or superior numbers. It stands because sometimes you need someone who won't quit when everyone else has already walked away. That's what the A-10 was built for. That's what I was trained for. The next morning, young pilots walking through the command center would stop and stare at the patch on the wall. Veterans would tell them about the day when a single pilot in an old aircraft held off an entire enemy battalion to save a strategic dam. Some would ask what made the difference. The answer was simple. When everyone else said it was too late, she said it wasn't. That's what heroes do. People had believed the A-10 was obsolete. They thought Reina Vasquez was finished. But when even the SEALs gave up, she and her forgotten aircraft held the dam and saved the region. The lesson: never think it's too late while someone still refuses to quit. What others dismiss as worthless sometimes becomes the only thing that preserves hope. If you believe that forgotten people still deserve to be remembered, leave a dot below. And don't forget to subscribe to SN Quiet Stories, where we tell stories about people who seem to fade into darkness, but instead illuminated history.